Reno Tirakatni.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to pick up on the points raised by Mr. O'Rourke. It certainly is good having an experienced legal practitioner in the House, and in particular his reading of Clause 4, the Principles Clause, sir, because those clauses which are at the front of the legislation, obviously they are the most important. They set the scene, they establish the founding purposes and principles of the legislation. And I think Mr. O'Rourke is correct in the use of the language with instead of it being mandatory on the council in terms of its having regard in performing its role as trustee, then it sort of becomes a little bit more vague, where it talks about have particular regard to the following principles, that the Wellington Town Belt should be managed in partnership with mana whenua, should be. And again, the repetition of should occurs all the way through those very important principles provisions. And so, sir, perhaps in my reading, I guess you could say that there is wiggle room there for the council. They should have regard or particular regard to these principles, but they may not necessarily do so. It's not an express prescription or a mandatory obligation on the council. It's only that they should do it, and I think it's a very valid point that Mr. O'Rourke raised, that the language in the bill should be more express, because if we carry on through the actual nuts and bolts of the bill, sir, when we talk about management plans and powers of the council, everything is very prescribed, it's very clear, it's very explicit what the council must do and what it mustn't do in relation to the town belt. So yeah, we should really look at the principles provisions, because I'm just noting the first principle that's there in clause 4, 1b, little I, is that the town belt should be managed in partnership with mana whenua. Should be. But if we look at that clause, sir, there is nothing in the body of the bill itself which actually gives meaning to what the council should be doing or must do in relation to its partnership with mana whenua. It's silent. It's very explicit in terms of what the council can and cannot do, but it says nothing in relation to how it is to conduct its dealings with mana whenua in its partnership with mana whenua. And so I just endorse Mr. O'Rourke's remarks and believe perhaps further consideration should be given to the wording. It just leaves too much wiggle room in my mind, having read through it again, that there is not an express obligation on the council that it must fulfil or adhere to those principles. Also, sir, I do support the SOP 169 from Mr. Robertson. It's very clear that if you're not wanting to grant a lease for 8 hectares, or that you should, provide an open-ended licence provision to grant a licence. So that makes a great deal of common sense, and that's been picked up on. And also, and just to respond to Mr. Nash's point about the rule against perpetuities, I know it's been a long time ago since I looked at the law, but I think the statutory provisions would override the rule against perpetuity. So, but it's I think that might apply to private trusts, but not. I guess Parliament can override those common law principles. But lastly, sir, I just want to just go back to this, the beautiful town belt itself. Yes, it has a lot of history, both in the Māori history and in the development of our city, but it also is, sir, Yeah, an everyday space.
Yeah.
And
Grant
yeah,
Robertson.
kia ora.
Mr Chair, thank you, and I want to thank all